Hello, everyone. Welcome to BizzTalk World Talk Show presented by Clickaway Creators. Today, we have Marissa Levin with us, a 30-year entrepreneur, speaker, and a globally recognized corporate culture expert and growth strategist as well. Marissa's lifetime legacy mission is to educate, equip, and empower 100 million entrepreneurs. That's a huge number. I'm talking about 100 million entrepreneurs and leaders with the skill sets and mindsets they need to reach their greatest potential. She's also an author, she's a coach, she's everything that you can think of to learn from an individual. So without wasting few more time, let's talk to her straight away and get some more knowledge. Hello, Marissa.
Sure.
How are you?
Hi, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the trust.
Hey, thank you for joining us. It's our pleasure to have you on board. All right, so Marissa, I've tried my level best. I mean, it's time for our viewers to understand it's been 3 decades that you have invested towards, being an entrepreneur in the industry. So let's talk about something. Please brief us about your journey so far, if you may.
So my journey, and I know we don't have all day. So my undergraduate degree was actually in English with a concentration in Shakespeare. I had no business experience at all. That was my undergraduate degree. And, I basically was born with a pen in my hand. I'm a writer at heart. And after college, I became a journalist on Capitol Hill. I covered the telecommunications and the information technology industry. I was hired by a consulting firm that specialized in that industry to get into the world of education and training, design and development. I went there, I fell in love with that field, worked for a very brilliant man for a few years who didn't really value me. And he capped my worth at about $34,000 annually after I had quantified what I was making him and after I got my master's degree in organizational development. And after he capped my worth, I just decided, my mom had taught me you never let anyone else determine your worth. And I decided that it was time for me to go on my own and start my first business. So I started my first business almost 30 years ago. It's called Information Experts. I grew that to about $15 million until I exited that 11 years ago. That was a firm that focused on human capital, education and training, marketing and outreach, primarily for the federal government. We supported about 15 different federal agencies, but also had a private sector and nonprofit group as well. Exited that and then launched Successful Culture, which was basically a solopreneurship type of company where I would work with very high impact leaders to help them build their best cultures and develop their own leadership potential. I took that company and I merged with another company to create an international global presence for corporate culture. And so I'm in the middle, I run that business. I also have my individual high-end coaching. Along the way, I wrote a book on how to build advisory boards to help companies build their best boards. I launched another company called Women's CEO Roundtable that provided masterminding and CEO roundtables for women under $1 million. And in 2022, I'm going to launch the Joy Institute. So that really has kind of been my journey in under 5 minutes of 30 years.
So that I know that would be hard for you to sum up in such quick, like 3 to 4 minutes. That is really hard for you. Talking about your book, I mean, let's talk something about Build to Scale. By the way, it's the number one best-selling book that we have that she has in her hand, and that's Build to Scale: How Top Companies Create Breakthrough Growth Through Exceptional Advisory Boards. Let's talk something about it, the content and what's in it, really.
Sure. So, I firmly believe that we need to surround ourselves with others to be able to reach our greatest potential. I'm definitely someone who merges both strategy and spirituality, and I believe that when we become part of the universe becomes part of us. So if we think about that context in terms of business ownership and entrepreneurship and how we truly immerse ourselves in the communities and the people that can help us get to the next levels of growth personally and professionally, to me, that's one of the most important aspects of growth, is being comfortable asking for help, being intentional and thoughtful about who we are surrounding ourselves with. So when I was building my first company, I always say that building your first company is like building a plane while you're flying it. You really, every moment of every day, you are making decisions on what direction to go in, how fast to be going, what altitude to be flying at, who is, next to you in the cockpit, making these decisions and really hoping you don't crash, right? And as I was building the company, I had so many things that I was doing right, but there were so many things that I was doing wrong. And at one point we had over 70 different projects going, and I felt like it was the wild, wild west. Even though my team was amazing, I was just flying by the seat of my pants. And so one of my advisors said to me, why don't you put in an advisory board? And I was like, what's an advisory board? And this is going back, 10 years. And he said, basically it's a group of advisors that you pick that help you figure out what your goals are and help you get there. So I thought that was a great idea because I'm someone who's very process oriented and very intentional about the decisions that I make in all aspects of my life. And I did my research, and there was no information on how to build an advisory board. There was information that you should do it, but there was no how. And so I spent a year documenting my own process and coming up with a model of scale. And that's select, compensate, associate, leverage, evaluate, evolve, and exit. And I interviewed about 150 other business owners about their experiences. And after I had gathered all of this information and documented my process, I went away for 2 weekends and I wrote the book in 2 weekends. I did 30 hours of writing each weekend. I published it. I turned my own company into a publishing company. I threw it up on Amazon, and it kind of took on a life of its own. And now it's in about 14 different countries, and we work with hundreds and hundreds of business owners, helping them build their advisory boards. It's been sold thousands of times to help other business owners. And it just is the model on how you can be very intentional and mindful about surrounding yourself with the people that you need.
Did you really thought of, while writing the book, did you really thought of that it will become the #1 best-selling book?
No, my goal was not to become a bestseller. That was never my intention. My goal was to document the process so that I could help as many other entrepreneurs as possible, because my advisory board literally doubled my company, and having access to those, experts and those resources that I needed to help me, get to the place that I wanted to go, sidestep and overcome challenges that were really difficult, help me find new ways of thinking about things, expose me to different business development opportunities, mentor my people. These are all the ways that I was able to leverage my advisory board. And so that was really important.
Well, that's right. That coming from someone who really built it from scratch through, his or her own process, this is more relatable. And that's why I guess, this reached that benchmark that you never expected. Are you a spiritual individual, Marissa?
So I'm yeah, we all are. We're all spiritual beings right now in human form. Yeah.
All right.
The spiritual path is definitely the central path of my life, and everything kind of revolves around that.
How did it came up to you? How did it really came up to you? How did it stuck you? Or were you since your birth, like you had a pen in your hand? Was the spirituality following you behind it?
Yeah, I think I was born, I was definitely born in the path that I'm in for spiritual awareness. I've grown a lot. Our paths, continuously expand and evolve and grow. And I think right now I'm definitely in a place where I'm on a major spiritual expansion. But I've always been highly intuitive. I've always been highly empathic. I've just always been kind of connected to other people's souls. And it's just, I definitely feel a very distinct connection to source, or to God, or universe, or Gaia, or whatever anybody wants to call the larger being that is around us. I definitely have a connection through my energy to that.
All right. Okay. So my next question would be, what role has spirituality played in your professional and entrepreneurial journey so far? If you can guide us through that.
So, I think for me, I've always kind of looked at all aspects of my life, that life is happening for me, not to me, and that our obstacles are not barriers to our growth and to our path, but are actually integral parts of our path. And I'm a big believer in co-creation, that, there is a larger picture for all of us that we can't see. I mean, we all have a very specific place in this role, connection with, the divine, that we just can't see. There's an energy that we can't see. But at the same time, when we're in touch with what our gifts are and with our skills and with our talents, and we choose to be intentional about the path and what we want to manifest, that's the side of co-creation that we can control, right? So there is definitely a path that has been defined for me, but how that path unfolds, I think, is within my, that's in my control. I'm a big believer that that manifestation is the way to move through life, and that it all starts with what we believe in our heart and what our spirit, is meant to do here. So it's just, from an entrepreneurial perspective, entrepreneurship is probably the hardest path that someone can take professionally. There's a lot of uncertainty. There are a lot of external validating circumstances. And when we attach ourselves to the external world, that's really where our suffering, comes into play. And the entrepreneurial world presents a lot of opportunities for us to have a lot of suffering. And so the spiritual path for me has always been, a guidepost on how I can remain grounded, remain connected to the fact that I'm part of something bigger than myself, not live my life and not lead from a place of ego, but truly from a place of service. And so those are just some of the ways that spirituality kind of show up in my life from an entrepreneurial perspective.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Let's keep it as a surrounding topic. Have you been to the book called Sapiens? I mean, I'm sure you must have heard of it. Sapiens.
What is it? So Sapiens?
Sapiens, yeah.
I'm not familiar. No.
No, I want you to read it once, please. I mean, the concept of God, I don't really believe or disbelieve it, but the concept of God is sort of not, I won't say it's destroyed, but it's put in a perspective of evolution. I mean, the scientific form of what God really is, or is it really one or not?
Check that out. Yeah, I will absolutely check that out.
I want you to get into your Kindle or something so that you can read it, or the paperback. All right, that's wonderful. If you would have been to that, then it would have been a great discussion right now. But let's move further.
We'll do it another time. Yeah, that will be discussion number 2.
yeah. Let's do this. Let's do this. We have been talking about your journey, about your profession, about your spirituality and everything. You must have faced some obstacles as well. I mean, in your journey, you talked about the guy who kept your things, and I mean, from the son of, I mean, he was the one who really made you do this, and now where you are precisely. I mean, that was the turning point.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that he limited my worth. I mean, it was because he limited my worth that I felt compelled to go out and start my first company. There's no doubt. Yeah, I mean, I'm grateful for that, and that's the thing with all of our obstacles.
Yeah,
in our life.
That was the first bump that you faced. I mean, there could be few more that you faced. So if you can guide us through that and how you really superseded them.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, the work that we did as a government contractor, what that does when you decide to be a government contractor is, your agenda for your business is really at the mercy of a much larger agenda, which is the congressional agenda, the presidential agenda. So, when there's an administration in the office, in our presidential office, they have certain they have certain goals, and they have a certain agenda, and they have certain priorities. And if you serve the government market, you have to make sure that what you're doing is aligned with that agenda, right?
That's right.
And so then if the office turns over in 4 years, or if on the state level, your representatives have different priorities, you have to morph and you have to follow the money if you're doing government contracting. And so as a business owner, we were always at the mercy of a much larger presidential and congressional agenda. And so that caused us to have to be able to pivot very quickly. And there were times where we couldn't pivot as quickly as we wanted to, or there were times when money that had been allocated to specific things was then taken off the table and we had to retract, or, they changed the way they were paying for contracts and we had to respond to that. So there was a lot of things, when you run a business, you are at the mercy of so many different external factors, and moving through those with grace, and moving through those, with a steady mind and a steady heart is challenging. It's very challenging.
That's right. That's really true. There's another question that I have. It may offend you, but I don't really want to do this. Is it a
I don't.
difference between I mean, you are an author, so you must be having different perspectives. That's why I just want to, explore this segment as well. Is there a difference of obstacles, or a degree of obstacles that I mean, between a male entrepreneur or a female entrepreneur? I mean, because
Absolutely.
you are an entrepreneur, so you must have seen. If yes, then if you can address some of them generically so that our viewers can understand more about it.
Oh, there always are. I mean, first of all, it's only been in recent years that a woman can walk into the bank and get a loan without having a male co-sign for it. So
That's right.
there is a major disparity between women having access to funding, women having access to banking, and men. And that is still in existence today. So there's just the financial piece. The other thing is, look, there are a lot of people out there that still don't believe that women should be working, that women should be running companies, that they have the ability to run companies, that they are credible. I mean, I fought a lot of sexual harassment, a lot of sexual discrimination, and I still fight it. I mean, it's just still there. So, you've got that social stigma that you have to deal with, that a lot of men still think, and women, that, women really should be at home and men should be the breadwinners. There's still a lot of social stigma around that. Then you have the whole issue of caregiving. I mean, it's 100% proven that women do take on the lion's share of caregiving, whether it's for children, whether it's for elders, whether it's taking care of the home. They end up shouldering all of that. And so as a woman business owner, I have two kids who are almost 21 and 24. And, they were the center of my life as I was building my business. I didn't want to outsource their childcare. I wanted to make sure that I was there picking them up from school. And so, that was a decision that I made, but that certainly affected my ability to build my business. And I always say that if I had to do it again, I would do it all over again. But there's no doubt that I sacrificed the growth of my company for the development of my children and for the growth of my family. And like I said, I would do it all over again. So there was that. When I started my business, there were no networking groups anywhere. There was no LinkedIn. There was no Facebook. There were very few women entrepreneurs where I was. And so I didn't have a big support system. So that was a whole nother thing that women had to deal with. There's a lot that women have to overcome. And then you've got all of the things that go on in a workplace, whether it's sexual harassment or sexual discrimination. It happens all the time. And it's, unfortunately, that's just where we are in society still, that things are not equal. We're still getting 70 cents, 80 cents on the dollar that men are making. So we still have a long ways to go, but we've come a long way too.
Exactly. And shout out to all the business women leaders out there. I mean, I had a session with Ms. Bijetri Roy. I tried to put it somewhere in the iCard here or there. Individuals can find it, and she talked about the women empowerment agenda. I mean, sometimes I talk to women about women empowerment and they get really offended. I mean, that we as women don't need any empowerment. But what I believe is that I'm talking in a generic sense. I mean, let's talk about Africa, let's talk about Ethiopia, let's talk about Nigeria. Their woman definitely needs it, right? So you cannot really just really remove the idea of women empowerment, or it could be possible that you don't need it, but there are women who needs it. So that's what I wanted to address as well. But whatever you said, it's really disturbing for us. I mean, I'm from India right now. From the Indian perspective, it's here, and we believe that, okay, we are a developing country or an underdeveloped country. We are still going on, and but in a developed country, in the most developed market over the globe, which is states, of course, if it's going there, I mean, it's just here. I mean, from the evolutionary standpoint, it's here in the men, I guess. And it's us as a social animal who has to change our psychology here. All right, that was a beautiful question and a beautiful answer by Marissa. My last question now would be, Bash, you have a great experience. You're an author and an advisor and everything. What would you advise to young professionals in your industry or in generic terms?
So for young, you mean young entrepreneurs or just young professionals?
I mean the entrepreneurs.
So, so if you're just starting out and you're just starting on this journey, there's so much you don't know. I mean, I've been doing it for 30 years and I'm still learning, right? I mean, I still consider myself at base camp, right? Like that there's just, I have beginner's mind. There's so much that I can still learn, and there's so many ways that I can get better. Don't allow your ego to get in the way of your progress. That is going to be your biggest obstacle. Your biggest enemy will be your own ego. So when we're building a company, it's very important to know what our core values are, what we stand for, what our moral compass is, our North Star, what our mission is, why are we existing, and making sure that it's bigger than ourselves, not just focusing on profit, but what contribution are you making to this world? And the way that you're going to learn the most is to engage with others who have already accomplished what you've accomplished. There are so many people that want to help you out there. Do not be embarrassed about asking for help. Lean into asking for help. It is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. So there are a lot of, investors that won't invest in first-time business owners because they feel that they don't know enough and that they haven't made enough mistakes, and they don't feel like having those mistakes made on their dime.
That's right.
So, if I were looking to invest in a company, I'm not going to probably look at a really young startup unless I know that person is super open to surrounding themselves with great advisors and is very open to asking for help. I will never invest in a business owner that thinks they have all the answers. That to me is probably the biggest red flag. So being open to help, subjugating your ego, knowing that asking for help is always a sign of strength, being very mindful and intentional about surrounding yourself with the right people. That's really the most important piece of advice that I could give any business owner.
That's again beautiful words by Marissa. I believe if I have to sum it up with, it's all about value creation, and it's all about, just giving your head entirely into it, and just don't look back. Sometimes look back, just to get motivated, but other than that, you're always better, you're always good, and you're good with your idea. Just do it. Just let's do it. That's what I would say. All right, it was a great session for me, and of course Marissa also enjoyed this. If I can have an acknowledgement in this, can I have a thumbs up? All right, cool. So thank you very much, Marissa, for sharing such great insights with us, and we of course look forward to having you on this session again, and to have a great chat again on some other trending topics in the international business industry as well. And for our viewers, if you really like this video, then do click on that like button and just like this video, share this video, click on that subscribe button to subscribe to ClickAway Creators YouTube channel to appreciate what we do. And you have more coming in from industry leaders like Marissa Levin. This was Sagar from BizzTalk World. Let's continue. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Just and connect with me on LinkedIn. Marissa Levin 1 on LinkedIn. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well, but LinkedIn is where I'm most active, and you can find us at successfulculture.com.
Oh yeah, we'll put all the links in the description, so you guys can follow Marissa and follow ClickAway Creators as well. You can follow me as well. I'll put my links in the description so that we can get more followership and we can share more knowledge, and more we can share just more enlightenment towards everything. So again, this was Sagar for BizzTalk World signing off. This was Marissa. Thank you very much for joining us.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, bye-bye.